Hello, and welcome to Friday Night Movies, where I decorate a set of cookies based on a movie I love. So, if you enjoy watching cookie decorating and want to learn about the Goonies, do keep watching. So, The Goonies was released on June 7th, 1985. It has a 76% on Rotten Tomatoes. Rude. With an audience score of 91%. So, that seems a little bit more fair. If you have not seen this movie, it is about a group of kids that call themselves the Goonies. And the main character, Mikey, and his brother Brand are about to lose their childhood home to the town snobs. And as a last hurrah and attempt to maybe get enough money to keep the house, Mikey and his friends decide to go on a treasure hunt for One-Eyed Willie's treasure. And all throughout the adventure, they have a family of fugitives, the Fratellis, right behind them. So really quickly about the cookies, there's going to be 6 designs total for this set, and I've got the whole color palette bagged and ready to go, and you'll see here I'm just flooding each cookie to create a base for the design. Okay, so back to the movie. It was directed by Richard Donner and produced by Steven Spielberg. Richard Donner has a long list of TV shows that he directed, and some of the films he did were the 70s and 80s versions of Superman, the Lethal Weapon movies, Scrooge, lots of cult classics, including, of course, The Goonies. But The Goonies is really the only movie he directed with a cast mostly made of children. And he said in an interview that it was the most exhausting and chaotic group he ever worked with. But it was also very exciting and endearing, and he said the kids were far more interesting to work with than the adults. So, as I decorate this cookie of the cast, let's talk a little bit about who is all in this movie. A few of the kids are still acting today. Sean Astin, who plays Mikey, very successful with the Lord of the Rings movies and has been in Stranger Things more recently. Josh Brolin, Brand, very successful actor. Corey Feldman plays Mouth, is Corey Feldman doing his thing with his music. Martha Plimpton, Steph, has been in lots of TV shows and movies. Ke Huy Quan just made a huge comeback. He just won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in Everything Everywhere All at Once. And his speech made me cry big time. He hasn't been in many movies. And the ones that he has been in are pretty amazing. So it seems to really be like a quality over quantity kind of thing with him. Jeff Cohen, Chunk, he didn't do very much with acting, but is now running his own law firm. Carrie Green, who plays Andy, also wasn't in a ton of other projects, but has her own film production company called Independent Women Artists. The other movie that she's really known for is Lucas, another really great film from the 80s. Winona Ryder is super young in that movie, and Corey Haim is also really young, and he plays Lucas. A fun fact about Corey Haim is that he and Corey Feldman both met each other when they read for the role of Mouth. And it obviously went to Corey Feldman, but this movie is what brought the two together. It's how they met. And if you're familiar with 80s pop culture, you know that they were best friends. It's how they were both known, the two Coreys. And they did a lot of movies together. It was also really cool to find out how Corey Feldman heard of the role of Mouth. He was actually supposed to be in the movie E.T., playing the role of Elliot's best friend, which if you've seen the movie, you know that character doesn't exist. So the script had a major rewrite and the role was completely removed. So Corey, of course, super devastated about losing that role, but Steven Spielberg loved him and casted him in Gremlins. So that's how Spielberg knew of him, and when they were looking for someone to play Mouth, he thought of him. So Sean Astin is Patty Duke's son, an amazing actress, Valley of the Dolls, The Miracle Worker, but I only recently found out who his father is, and it kind of blew my mind. His dad is John Astin, who was an actor that was pretty popular in the 60s, maybe 70s, maybe before. Not super familiar with his career, but I do know that he was the one who played the original Gomez Addams in the Addams Family TV show. And I just thought that was so random. I didn't know that was his dad. A funny little story about Sean and his mom is that he was allowed to keep the treasure map prop from the movie. And a few years go by, and his mom accidentally mistakes the map as just another crinkled piece of paper. So she tosses it in the trash. And I'm pretty sure that the map is gone forever. Or I guess maybe it's in like a landfill somewhere. But I think it's gone. So here I am just adding the final details to the cookie, added some gold paint to the treasure and glitter, adding some metallic-y blues and reds to make it look like different rubies and gems. And then just really the final details of the hat, and it'll be done. So in recent years, Sean Astin has said that he absolutely believes that at some point there is going to be a remake of the Goonies. Whether it's a sequel or even a musical now or 20 years from now, it's going to happen. Now, if you go on IMDb, the title The Goonies 2 pops up, and the expected year for it to come out is 2027. I have no idea of the validity of this, but I just thought it was interesting. I personally don't think that a sequel is necessary whatsoever for this movie. I think it ends perfectly. Sequels in general are like a hard sell for me. I'm not a big fan of a sequel, but I don't know, it seems to be like the thing to do these days. But Steven Spielberg recently did say that there's no current plan to make one, so I'm hoping it's not happening. But only time will tell, I guess. So right now I'm working on the doubloon, and I didn't do a lot of research about like the script or anything on it or what anything means. I just kind of wanted it to look similar to the one in the movie. But in a minute or so, you'll see me dusting it with like a petal dust, like a brown petal dust. And at first I was just going to do like the one color, but I ended up adding a blue to it, just a little bit of blue. And oh my God, I love how it turned out. You'll see. I don't know why. I just love the color of it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the rest of the main cast, the Fratellis. So you have Jake, played by Robert Davi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's a more intimidating brother who is also apparently an opera singer. And then you have Francis, played by Joe Pantoliano, and Mama Fratelli by Anne Ramsey. We'll talk about the fourth Fratelli in a minute. So if you've seen the movie, there's a scene where Jake gets punched in the face by a boxing glove that pops out of Data's jacket when he presses a button. And it was actually that actor's idea for that to happen. So the whole crew was very open to different suggestions about certain aspects of the movie, and the director himself was also really big on improv. So this was a really last minute detail, but they really liked it, and they ended up delaying filming a day or two just to prepare for that one aspect of the scene. So one other thing that actor takes credit for is when the Fratellis are speaking in Italian in front of the kids at the restaurant. Originally, they were going to just be speaking in English, but he said, no, they need to be speaking in Italian. The kids do not need to know what we're talking about. Joe Pantoliano, who plays Francis, the brother with the toupee and glasses, said that the director Richard Donner was the funnest filmmaker he had ever worked with. And he's been in a lot of movies. Joe and Robert, the two brothers, had a joint audition for the movie, and their real life banter is actually what won them both their roles for the movie. They did not like each other in real life. They did not get along, but it ended up working great for their roles in the movie. Just thought that was funny. You just assume that everyone likes each other in real life, but it's funny that they really disliked each other so much that you can actually see it in the movie as they're acting. So at the time of the making of the Goonies, Joe was trying to join the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. And to join, you need 2 members of the Academy as sponsors. So the first sponsor of his was Anne Ramsey, who played his mom, and the second one ended up being Patty Duke, and he met her while she was visiting her son Sean on the set. Now, a little bit about Anne Ramsey. You probably recognize her from the movie Throw Mama from the Train, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. She is absolutely hilarious. And she was actually nominated for an Oscar in that role, which isn't super common for a comedy. But she was just that good in it. She was great in this movie too, of course. So now that I am working on the sloth cookie, it's only fitting for me to talk about the last of the Fratellis, which is Sloth, the gentle giant played by John Matuzek. And I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing that last name, so I apologize. He was in quite a few TV shows and movies, but he was also an NFL player. He played mostly for the Raiders, then later joined the Houston Oilers. He sadly passed away only at the age of 39. And even though he was so young, it really seems like he was able to accomplish a lot in his life. He played this super iconic role. Everybody loves Sloth. Richard Donner, the director, has always had so many nice things to say about him. And he said that he was such a pleasure to work with, and that even though he was in, the chair for makeup for hours at a time, he never once complained. I was super worried that this cookie was not going to turn out well. I sometimes really struggle with, doing a face on a cookie. Sometimes I'll just leave the faces blank. I like how that looks also, but it also is just a way for me to not have to do the face. But I really am happy with how this turned out. It kind of looks a little more Quasimodo than Sloth, but that's okay. You can still tell that it's Sloth, with the hey you guys and the pirate hat. So I like it. So throughout pretty much the whole movie, there's a side story of Chunk and Sloth's adventure with the two of them together, and they become BFFs. And at the very end of the movie, Chunk basically takes Sloth in and tells him that he's going to live with him and his family. And even as a kid, this was kind of weird to me. Sloth is a grown man, and also Chunk didn't even ask his parents if he could live with them. My parents would kill me if I pulled something like that. It's so weird. It's sweet, but it's weird. Am I the only one? So right now I am working on the Baby Ruth cookie. You can't really think about the Goonies without thinking about a Baby Ruth candy bar. I feel like everyone who's seen it at some point in time has done the impression of Sloth saying Baby Ruth. I'm not going to do it right now, but I've done it. Take a shot every time I say Baby Ruth. I think Baby Ruth is probably one of the only candy bars that I've never actually tried. But apparently there almost wasn't a Baby Ruth scene because it originally was going to be an Almond Joy. And that just doesn't have the same ring to it, you know. I have had many almond joys though. They're really good. You know, I have to say, I didn't love how this cookie turned out. I just didn't seem to get the font right. Like, there's just something off about it. Like, it's okay. It's definitely not my favorite. Like, it's my least favorite of the set. You know, you win some, you lose some. It's okay. It's just a baby Ruth, you know? Okay, so I am about to start the chunk cookie. Chunk is my favorite character. I love him. And the chunk cookie and the first cookie that I did of the cast are probably a tie for my favorite of the set. I love this one, but honestly, like, could his outfit be any more detailed? Like, I don't do well with recreating plaid. Like, my brain just doesn't seem to process plaid. Like, I don't know why. This plaid turned out okay, but like a Hawaiian shirt also, come on. I really like this cookie though. Okay, so let's talk about a scene that never was. So it's supposed to be after the pipes are moved around by Sloth, I believe. And somehow the moving of the pipes somehow causes gorillas to escape from the local zoo. Yes, gorillas. And they go on a rampage and cause chaos around the town, which leads to them stealing Troy's car, like the villain that almost murders Brand at the beginning of the movie. And yeah, that's what that's like something that was gonna like be in the movie, gorillas. But thankfully that didn't end up happening. You know, there's funny, weird, and then there's just like dumb. And that was just dumb, you know? So, one of the deleted scenes from the movie is basically like the kids are in front of the ship in the water toward the end of the movie, and a giant octopus starts to attack Steph and Mouth. And then Data comes in and saves the day by putting a cassette player in the octopus's mouth, and he plays a song for it. And it distracts the octopus so much that he lets them go, and the octopus kind of like dances and swims away. It's really weird, and it's just another thing that I'm glad was cut from the movie. So here I'm working on the Fratelli's Wanted poster. I wanted the cookie to kind of have like almost like the look of like a worn vintage t-shirt, if that makes any sense. And I added some purple to it to kind of give it like that 80s flair because in my head, like the 80s, like a very 80s color is purple. I really like how this turned out. I was not expecting to really like this cookie so much, but I'm happy with the outcome. So as the video's end is drawing near, I'm going to share just a few random facts about the movie. Sean Astin yells, "Holy Mackenzie," when the Fratellis shoot at the kids as a way to put his brother's name into the movie. In the scene where the pirate ship is revealed to the kids, it's actually the first time the cast saw it in person, so their reaction in the film is their genuine real-life reaction to seeing it. Cyndi Lauper co-wrote the theme song for the movie called Goonies Are Good Enough. And in one part of the movie, you see her singing it on the TV. The majority of the movie was shot in sequence, and it took 5 months to make. It was mostly filmed in Astoria, Oregon, and that town and area plays a big role in the movie. The town is quite the tourist trap now, as the house from the movie is still there, along with the jailhouse in the opening scene. The jailhouse is now the Oregon Film Museum. I was actually able to go a few years ago, and it's really cool. There's lots of movie props and all kinds of things about film. The Goonies house was actually just sold to a super fan of the movie for 1.6 million in January of this year. The new owner promises to protect the house as it's a little piece of movie history. At the time of filming, Warner Brothers had a lot done structurally to the home so they could film in it. Everything you see in the movie of the house was actually filmed inside of it, except for the attic scene. The real attic was far too small to film inside. All right, so just adding the final touches to the Fratelli's cookie. So, speaking of Astoria, in 2010, the mayor of Astoria officially declared June 7th Goonies Day. And I really like that because there should be an official day for the Goonies because it's one of the greatest movies of all time, in my opinion. Well, that is it for this set. I hope you enjoyed watching and learning a little bit about the film at the same time. I'll be posting new chapters of this series every other Friday. The next one is already done, just doing some final editing. I'm going to give one big hint of what it is, and it's probably going to give it away, but it was filmed just a few years after the Goonies, also in Astoria, Oregon. Now, go watch the Goonies. Bye.